Teams rooms. Everyone talks about Teams rooms and great cameras and great audio, but guess what? No one actually thinks about the furniture in the room, except for one guy. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mo Mondays. In this week's episode, I am going to be discussing building out your meeting room space. And I've actually got a special guest with me. But before I bring him in, let me just give you a bit of context. Now, when we talk about Teams rooms, you know, a lot of times we talk about equity inside of the room. We talk about having great cameras, great placement of cameras and mics and speakers, etc. But one thing that people generally forget about is the aesthetics of the room, right? They have a massive bearing in terms of how your room's going to perform in terms of audio, in terms of video, and even things like whiteboarding as well. And I was browsing over in LinkedIn and I came across a pretty good white paper. So one of our partners called Simity, and hopefully you guys have heard of Simity, one of their directors there actually created a white paper that actually talks really about, you know, building out meeting room spaces and the aesthetics, etc. And in this week's episode, I've actually invited him to join me to really have a bit of a conversation about, you know, the furniture considerations inside of a meeting room space. So let me bring him in. Hey, Giles, can you hear and see me? Hey, hey, welcome to. Doing? All good. Welcome to Mo Mondays. Yeah, I came across this white paper on LinkedIn. You know, I found it really inspirational. I really liked it because a lot of times people really talk about, you know, cameras, mic, speakers, etc. And yes, they are truly important. But usually what goes at the bottom of the list is, well, what table should we have? What furniture should we have? What should the aesthetics look like in the room? And, you know, I've been banging about it and the team have been banging about it for a long time about how important those elements are to build out a really good meeting room space, especially in this new kind of hybrid way of working. So I wanted to bring in an expert such as yourself. If you'd like to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump straight into it.
Okay, hi, I'm Giles Skiba. I'm the Video Collaboration Director at Simity, and I look after all of our AV/VC rollouts.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I was working with Mo last week in Seattle, and one of the things actually we did talk about while we were there discussing standards of rooms was about the physical nature of rooms and how that really can affect the quality of both video and audio within the room. It's I think the phrase in films is let's fix it in post, and let's not fix it in post. Let's get it right when we're building it and spec it right and design the space right, and then put the right equipment into it afterwards to boost that experience, not to lean back and rely upon that equipment. And you're right, furniture is something that generally misses us at design phase. A lot of the time it's done by the John.
I was just about to say, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say that most of us, when we're talking to our customers, we tend to talk to the AV folk or the IT folk, you know, and they're the guys that are saying, hey, we want great cameras and speakers and mics, etc. And they leave it to facilities, right? It's facilities that would generally put the tables and chairs in and they have no say. But, you know, based on, I think, what you're about to say, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be absolutely be including the correct stakeholders, including the facilities guys that are building out the rooms, right? To kind of look at what the aesthetics look like inside of that room to get the very best of, you know, the technology we have in there, right?
Yeah, you're right. There's certain bits of physics that we need to think about. You know, there's acoustic nature, there's lighting, there's the how, you know, how echoey the room is, you know, and these decisions can be made a lot of the time can be made before we're involved in the discussions. You know, the facilities can do it, the architect can do it. The architect will come back with these drawings of lovely polished concrete and polished steel, everything, and it looks beautiful in a CAD rendering, but just sounds horrible in real life. And to get us involved and to get, you know, your AV/VC integrator involved in these discussions at an early stage is vitally important. You know, there are reasons in which I can show you. I think I've got some information we can show as to why this is important. So table shape is the one that we were sort of discussing, saying furniture within the room. There is a tendency, I think we've all seen it, to sort of slap a rectangular room and some chairs around it in a table and put a screen at the end and a camera below and hope that that makes a hybrid meeting. The issue you're going to have there is you've got a camera, you've got a single eye looking into the space. And that will only see people sitting we'll see the person sitting at the front of the table, and everyone else is going to be sitting behind them, because it's a 2D image that we're looking at on a screen. It's a 2D representation of a 3D thing.
I mean, I'm a classic example of it. I mean, whoever's seen me in real life will figure out I'm like the shortest guy alive, right? And I'm sure, Giles, you were surprised when you saw me last week. Like, wow, Mo's absolutely tiny. The challenge I have is when you have those bowling room alley types of tables, I have to like lean back and move because I can't see past people to see the screen, right? Because everyone's really tall. But that also means that the camera view, when it's pointing, you've got, you're missing out people, and you've got little mole's head sticking out from the side and stuff. So you're absolutely right. That human behavior piece is like, you don't really think about the remote side when you're sitting in the room. You're just kind of like, I want to be able to see the screen. And generally cameras are placed where the screens are, where you need to be looking, right? So this is super important.
Yeah, you're correct. And then the key is to have some sort of chamfer or angle on the table, so that you got the meeting participants staggered inwards, ensuring that they're sort of one slightly in front of each other as we're moving forward. And I've got a few different examples here. There's we've got a round table, so people aren't sitting in front of each other. We've got a guitar plectrum, let's say, shaped table, or a kidney shaped table. We've got a more trapezoid type, and we've also got one which is designed a bit like a telepresence room, a Microsoft signature room style arched shaped table with everyone sitting around one side. So it's very much designed for people facing a screen, but the arch on the table allows people to look over and speak to each other as well, because we want to keep face-to-face contact going as well. They're not just referencing the large screens.
And I think this is super important, because I always say it when we're talking to partners and customers and stuff, that actually that room design piece, when you're designing furnitures and chairs and stuff, you actually dictate what that behavior looks like inside of that room. So for example, where you've got the curved table and you've got the seats, you're forcing people to look directly face forward, right? Whereas when you've got the rectangular table, naturally we all just look at each other. So again, it's kind of taking that step back. And, before you start talking about furniture or start talking about the technology in the room, is actually asking the customer, well, what types of meetings are going to take place here? Are they generally those types of meetings which are interactive, where people are, kind of working together, a collaborative type of meeting? Or is it, you being dictated, with a PowerPoint on the screen where you're just sitting and watching, like in a education setting, as an example? But what we're now seeing is those collaborative types of meetings generally are the types of meetings that are now taking place, because people come to the office to collaborate. They don't just come to the office because they have to, unless they're forced to with some organizations. But most of the time is, hey, I'm going to go to the office because there's people there that I want to meet. And like you said, I really like this, where the design of the table will reflect the type of behavior driving in that room, but also more importantly, what type of persona is in that room. So for example, the circular table you've got in this example kind of forces people to collaborate with each other, right? It's that natural. You see a circular table, it's like, right, we're going to be more intimate, we're going to be engaging with each other more. Whereas that rectangular type of table tends to be more formal, and it's like you're just listening more than kind of talking, because you don't want to be talking to the guy that's sitting right on the far end. It becomes a challenge. So I really do like what you've done here. It's really interesting because obviously last week, myself and you, we were over at Microsoft HQ in Seattle. And, amazing time, great weather over there as well, really good food, good company. And maybe that's for another video. But one of the things that we actually did, and we were lucky to do, was actually visit Hive. And for those of you that don't know what the Hive is at Microsoft, it's one of the buildings at Microsoft where the Teams team basically have fun designing what standards look like in a meeting room space. They've got cardboard cutouts of all sorts of different things. And, you were lucky enough to join me across there, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a really fascinating site, and it was good to see the place where they're bringing the new technologies, they're experimenting with new things. It was good to see some tables with multiple cameras on and looking at how they work with their team systems. It was really good. We've got some photos here of some of the Microsoft offices actually on the new campus, and this sort of shows how they're embracing, the technology that we're talking about. They're not just, they're practicing what they preach, let's say. So we've got a room here with a plectrum shaped table layout. So people are sort of sitting in the round. people can't sit in front of each other from the camera's point of view, but they can still look at each other on the table. They can around the table. They can look at the wall to look at the presentation where that is, and the camera, so they can all be seen. And on the right, we've got one of their signature rooms. More of a traditional telepresence style layout. Everyone's facing the front, but the arch on the table, allows everyone to still look over, speak to each other. So you're not just addressing the people at the far end, you're addressing everyone within the room. It's about that equity, making sure that everyone feels like they're part of the experience.
And kind of the key thing here is like, actually, you look at the tables and chairs first, because the way I look at the camera placements we've got here are the ideal cameras that you would have in that sort of setting, right? So where you've got the semicircle type of table on the left-hand side picture, there's a Yealing 360 camera across there. And other OEMs, of course, will also do 360 cameras as well. But the idea is having that type of camera means, you've got a wider kind of field of view, and even if you are moving around slightly, it will still pick you up. It's a really good camera to use in that space. I like the fact that they've combined that with the Surface Hub in that room as well. And then if you look at the picture on the right hand side, they're using, I think it's the Jabra Panacast across there, which of course will have multi-stream capabilities as soon as Microsoft release that, but that's for another day. But the camera itself is able to kind of frame people along with other OEMs as well, but frame people and put them within their own individual window. So to me, I'm like, actually, if you start off with the room design element, well, what types of behaviors are we driving? What types of furniture are we putting in that room? The camera piece then comes after, right? Because you want the camera to reflect how people are sitting.
It really does. And if you go back to my other slide, it's really important that we don't sort of just slap some furniture in a room as well. We need to think about where people are going to sit. What equipment are we going to be putting in? We did talk about the style of the meeting and what the content's going to be, how people are going to act in the room. But at some point, we need to nail down into what equipment we're going to put into the room. And the little red arrows I put on here, the red triangle shapes, they would represent the field of view of a camera. So when your camera's completely panned out and it's looking at the room, it's the wide angle of the room. What can it see? And you'll notice in a couple of the images, there's some green squares. And basically what it's saying is that if you're sitting too close to the screen, the camera won't see you. You'll be out of view. You'll be where they might see your nose, if you're lucky, just pointing in at the side. And these are things that are really important to liaise with the architects and go, no, the table needs to be this far from the wall. I mean, you don't want to be sitting under the screen. It's something that I've seen a few times is where they just sort of slap a table under a screen, right butted against the wall. And you've got the user sitting here against the wall, and this huge screen sort of burning. They've got their factor 40 on one side of their face, it's burning into their face, and no one wants to sit there. And there are AVIXA standards into how far away you should be sitting from a screen to to take in the content. Even though there are cameras that can do 180, do we want to be sitting butted up against the wall? Probably not. But it's something that we can work with the team, and that liaising with the architects, I think, is really important.
Yeah. And for those of you out there that have already deployed Teams rooms and maybe haven't really thought about furniture considerations and it's too late for that stage, don't worry, because Microsoft will be bringing multi-camera support later on this year as well. Some OEMs already support that, work with the likes of Simity, and they can provide solutions where, even though you may have a camera that sits at the front of the room, we can add additional cameras, be it a center of room camera or a camera on the far end, to be able to capture those dead zones, if you want to call it, just because we may have planned poorly previously. But it becomes a lot better as we start moving kind of throughout the year as well. So tables and chairs are super important. Of course, lighting and aesthetics as well. For those of you that have been, our office, HP Poly's office, is in the Gherkin in London. Beautiful looking building, beautiful office. The problem is made out of glass and it's curved. And it's like the worst place to actually have meeting rooms. And what we've had to do is use sound deadening materials across the walls to actually stop the echo and the reverberation that takes place. So, there's a lot of consideration that actually comes in when you're designing these meeting rooms. I absolutely love this. If you haven't seen it already, Giles has created a white paper. So, I was lucky enough to actually have a chance to see what it looked like. It was on his on a LinkedIn post. I'm not going to show you guys everything because I want you guys to reach out to team Simity across here, but they do go into everything. They go into the acoustics, they go into lighting, you know, they talk about the furniture, and this is just a snapshot, right? Because then when you reach out to the team, or, you know, whichever partner, incumbent partner that you want to work with, hopefully you'll be able to then use the white paper and actually start considering and thinking about the lighting in the room, you know, thinking about you know, the acoustics, the furniture, but more importantly, making sure that you bring in the correct people as part of your conversation. So when you are bringing your team together to reach out to Giles or your partner or your OEM, you know, you bring in the facilities manager or the facilities person that's in charge of furniture or what's happening in the room, and also budget for that as well. Because a lot of times when, you know, we're thinking about budgeting for meeting room spaces, we think about the technology, we stop there. We don't think about everything else. And a lot of rooms do need treating in the way we are here today. For those of you that do want to see that white paper, do reach out to the Simity team on sales@simity.com. There will be a member of Giles's team that will reach out to you, get a bit of information and get your white paper over. I would 100% recommend taking a look at this. It is a breath of fresh air to see yourself, Giles, and partners actually thinking about the wider story, right? So it's not just about the technology, it's about the aesthetics in the room as well. And that will give you the very best of meeting room spaces, especially in today's world where we only really come back to the office when we need to do something, when we need to collaborate. And we want to have those great experiences like we have at home inside of an office when you do turn up there. Giles, any final words from you before we leave?
No, I don't think so. I think, like I said earlier, it's important that we don't try and fix things in post. Let's not just slap some things and hope for the best. Let's really take a considered view on how we're building our spaces. And I know there was a race, you know, wasn't there, when COVID happened and everyone had to rush in and video enable all of their rooms. But now we've got the opportunity to take a step back. Let's have a look at what we've got and let's assess it and see if we can make things better for all users of the spaces.
Perfect. I love that. If that's the one thing you're taking away from today, is don't try and fix things in post. It becomes a big challenge and it can get quite expensive as well. Giles, thank you so much for joining us today. A great white paper. Hopefully you'll get quite a few people reach out to you to have a little read of it. Do reach out to Giles and the team. Of course, if you have any comments, make sure to comment down below. And as always, guys, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And no doubt I shall see you guys on the next episode of Mondays. Ciao.